Hey everybody, I'm Josh Mosman and welcome to Motocross Action's 2021 250 4-stroke shootout. As always, we take our time with shootout testing, so we didn't rush through our 250 shootout in just a handful of days, and we're not publishing opinions from random riders. Our test riders range from small to big, slow to fast, and light to heavy, and we always rely on our base of knowledge that MXA has acquired from testing motorcycles since the 1970s. We have 11 test riders who don't just ride one bike all year, but we all cycle through our lineup of test bikes from each manufacturer, taking what we love and what we hate about each bike and learning more each time we ride and race. In MXA's 2021 250 shootout, we have all 7 of the 250 motocross bikes, and in this video, we're going to break down the pros and cons of each bike, placing them in order on how they ranked. We put lots of hours on each bike in their stock form, and then cleaned them up the best we could, installed some fresh ODI MX Pro V2 lock-on grips on each bike, and gathered up some pro riders to help us shoot this video. Without further ado, here's all 7 of the 2021 250 motocross contenders, ranking from last to first. Starting things off in 7th place is the 2021 Suzuki RMZ 250. So why should the Suzuki win this shootout? Retailing for $7,899, the Suzuki RMZ 250 has gotten a bad rap. But if you can look past the social fog and just ride the bike, most riders are surprised what the RMZ 250 has to offer. Yes, it is the lowest in horsepower, doesn't have an electric start, and it is so stiffly sprung that no one under 200 pounds could get full travel from the forks. However, MXA test riders still say good things about it. The low to mid power is light and perky. It is easy to get into the meat of the power. The handling is agile and it turns great, and you can override the bike and still feel like you're in control. Sadly, this is also the reason why you feel so good riding a 125. Every decent test rider knows that slow bikes handle better, make a rider feel like a hero, and that slow bikes aren't slow until they come up against a faster bike. So why should the Suzuki lose this shootout? It is heavy, slow, and dated. Need we say more? We want to be nice to the RMZ 250 because we love riding it, but we hate racing it. It is at a 5 horsepower disadvantage to the Husky FC 250 right out of the gate. Sixth place in MXA's 250 shootout is the 2021 Kawasaki KX250. Starting off, why should the Kawasaki win this shootout? Retailing for $8,299, the 2021 KX250 engine produces more power at every step of the curve than it did last year, but it lacks down low. From 6,000 to 8,000 RPM, it only moves slightly faster than the Honda CRF 250, but when it hits 8,500 RPM, the KX250 outperforms the Yamaha, and it passes the KTM and Husky engines at 9,500 RPM. The KX250 peaks out at 13,470 RPM with the second best horsepower in the class at 44.24 ponies. So why should the Kawasaki lose this shootout? Kawasaki missed the mark on handling. The front end lacked accuracy, pushing at speeds. The 2021 KX250 and KX450 share the exact same chassis, but they handle completely differently. We tried softer springs, we lowered the fork oil height, we raised the forks and the clamps, and tested every setting in the book in stock trim to make the front end stick. Eventually, the solution was to sit on the gas tank on the entrance of turns to put more weight on the front end. It helped, but there was still room for improvement. The front end felt high at the handlebars and rode high on the track, much like the 2015 KX250F chassis. Every time we found a good fork setting, the rear of the bike suffered, and vice versa. The KX250 lost this shootout because it's hard to find a balance. Coming in 5th place in MXA's shootout is the 2021 Honda CRF 250. So why should the Honda win this shootout? Retailing for $7,999, the CRF 250 has the best ergonomics in the class. It offers supreme comfort and adaptability to every rider who throws a leg over it. The pleasant feel has a lot to do with the plush toe suspension. The power is slow to build, but once it gets into the 8,000 RPM range, it charges hard until 11,500 RPM. That would be great, but the KTM, Husky, Kawasaki, and gasgas rev 2 or beyond 14,000 RPM. So why should the Honda lose this shootout? To start, the CRF 250 is overweight. On the MXA scales, it comes in at 227 pounds, which is a tie with most of the other Japanese brands. The CRF 250 is as much as 10 pounds heavier than the lightest of the Austrian steeds. On the positive side, the CRF 250 does feel light on the track because Honda positioned the mass better than on any other bike in the class. Honda's engineers have worked for the last 4 years to keep improving the CRF 250's top-end power at the cost of the low to mid usability. They worked on a shoestring budget that didn't allot them the millions of dollars that it would take to shed the excess 10 pounds and flesh out the power band from the bottom to top. The bike feels sluggish, even though it isn't as slow as it feels. Next on the list in 4th place is the 2021 gasgas MC 250F. Why should the gasgas win this shootout? Well, for $8,499, the MC 250F comes with almost everything that makes the KTM 250 a great bike. It has the WP Exact air forks, chromoly chassis, Brembo brakes, hydraulic clutch, electric starting, lightweight, and strong engine at an $800 discount. Without the map switch and resonance chamber on the header pipe, it saves over a pound on the 250 SXF from KTM, which makes it the lightest bike in the class at only 217 pounds, which is more than 10 pounds less than the heaviest bike, which is the Kawasaki KX250. The MC 250F from gasgas has a much plusher suspension setting that provides more comfort for the average guy, but it is a little wallowy for our faster testers. The engine's power is muted by 1.5 horses at peak in comparison to the KTM, but it's not the engine's fault. It's the gasgas's closed-off airbox and lack of a resonance chamber on the muffler. If you want the excitement of the KTM, you can drill holes in your airbox and buy a different exhaust. So why should the gasgas lose this shootout? The MC 250F is the base model of its brothers, the KTM and Husky, and the Austrian group detuned it so that it wouldn't battle with the premium bikes. Husky FC 250 and KTM 250 SXF buyers are happy that they get more for paying more. Coming in 3rd place on MXA's 250 shootout is the 2021 Yamaha YZ250F. So why should the Yamaha win this shootout? Retailing for $8,299, the YZ250F is the most exciting bike of this year. The robust acceleration off the cracked throttle is exhilarating, but you wouldn't think about it looking at the dyno numbers because they moved more of the power to the top end for this year, and it now sits 6th out of 7 in overall torque. Still, every rider who jumps on the YZ loves its perky power band, as the YZ250F is the only bike to offer that quick, come-to-life feel. The chassis is predictable, stable, and the front wheel hooks up like glue. The KYB SSS forks are amazing as always, and the shock offers great comfort. So, why should the Yamaha lose this shootout? The engine of the YZ250F gives the rider the impression that it's faster than it really is for 3 reasons. 1, the YZ250F gets moving quickly and pulls until 12,700 RPM. The problem is, after 9,000 RPM, every bike, except the Suzuki, pulls harder and further. It just isn't apparent to testers until they go head-to-head against the competition. 2, this new vented top airbox cover of the YZ250F makes the reverberation sound extremely loud, which also makes the bike sound faster. 3rd, Yamaha left the gear ratios the same as last year, so these low gear ratios make the engine feel fast, but they force the riders to shift a lot more often. Second place in MXA's 2021 250 shootout is the KTM 250 SXF. So why should the KTM have won this shootout? Retailing for $9,299, the KTM 250 SXF is known for its top-end, high-revving character, but people forget that it has the second highest torque number next to its compadre, the Husqvarna FC250. Many riders think that the YZ250F is the torque king of the 250 class, but what riders don't feel is that the YZ250F slowly runs out of steam as it climbs the RPM range, where the KTM 250 SXF is just getting started. Why should KTM lose this shootout? KTM is not a company that rests on its laurels, but the 250 SXF engine from KTM has remained virtually unchanged since 2016. Yes, it is still forced to be reckoned with, but 6 years is a long time for any engine to go without innovation. We expect the Austrians to unveil a totally new KTM 250 SXF 4-stroke for the 2022 model year. There isn't much to complain about on the KTM 250 for 2021, but there are a few things that tend to bug us. The spoke by the rim lock comes loose all the time. 2. The plastic shock preload adjuster needs some beefing up as it breaks apart. 3. The forks compression adjusters kind of hurt your fingers when you're adjusting them. 4. We prefer the handling characteristics of the lower chassis on the Husky FC250, even though the suspension settings are identical. Finally, the winner is the 2021 Husqvarna FC250. So why should the Husqvarna win this shootout? With the retail price of $9,399, Husky went for a new technique in 2021. They went lower. It got the same WP exact forks as the KTM and gasgas, but Husqvarna shortened the fork travel by 10 millimeters while using identical fork internal settings as the KTM. The shock valving is the same also, but the geometry of the bell crank, link arms, and shaft travel was changed to bring the rear of the Husky down an inch. On the track, these drastic changes turned the FC250 into the best handling bike in the class. The suspension was superior to that of the KTM, it held up better, was plusher, and the rear tracked exceptionally well. To top it off, the FC250 produces the best peak horsepower and torque numbers in the class. The big power numbers are a little mystifying because on the track, the FC250 revs slower than the KTM, the Kawasaki, and the Yamaha, which is most likely due to the closed-off airbox. Alright, now let's get into some of the category winners. The best bargain 250 of 2021 goes to the gasgas MC250F. This bike ranks 5th out of 7 in cost, with the Suzuki and Honda priced below it, but in our book, it's first in value. You get the potent Austrian engine, great air suspension, hydraulic clutch, electric starting, amazing handling, great brakes, and more at just an $800 discount off the KTM. True, it doesn't have the cool map switch, billet triple clamps, or resonance chamber on the head pipe, but those are more bells and whistles than real needs. The 2021 gasgas MC250F is the go-to bike for privateer race teams, as it offers the best engine and chassis and stock trim at a fraction of the price, which brings down the cost of race builds. We know most of you aren't pro riders who are watching this video, but it is worth buying the gasgas if you're looking for a bargain that you don't want to dump added money into. The MC250F's biggest flaw is the detuned engine, but it's only a flaw if you're looking for more power. Gasgas restricted the airbox with its cover to hold back the powerful engine and make it more user-friendly. Luckily, you can fix that by drilling holes in the airbox cover and buying a new exhaust. The MC250F is a bargain as it offers a great overall package at a solid price. Next up, the best entry-level 250 for 2021. For the MXA Wrecking Crew, there's one bike that sticks out as the best entry-level bike, and it's the Honda CRF 250. Hands down, it offers the most comfort with great ergonomics, plush suspension, and a comfortable chassis. Its 42 horsepower plant is more than powerful enough for any entry-level rider or a rider stepping up from the mini classes. The power may be reluctant to get moving off the bottom, but this is not the end of the world for riders who are new to the class. The CRF 250 is easy to adapt to because the power is linear and doesn't hit too hard at low RPM. We love the 2021 CRF 250, but once it lines up with the blue, orange, green, and white competition, its doors will get blown off. The things that make the CRF 250 the best entry-level bike also mean that it isn't good enough to win in a class where the power is king. Next up, the best working class 250 of 2021 is the Yamaha YZ250F. It's no secret that the Yamaha dirt bikes have a reputation for standing the test of time. If you're the guy who buys a new bike every decade, we're guessing you will sacrifice some handling and power to own a bike that will age along with you. It wasn't too long ago that the YZ250F was winning our shootouts. However, the Austrian bikes beat it with sheer horsepower. Along with the YZ250F's robustness are its best-in-class Kayaba SSS forks and shock. It has exciting and strong power spread and its superb handling. An average Joe can buy a 2021 YZ250F and go straight to the racetrack without doing a thing to it. Sure, the YZ250F has its imperfections, but most of them can be overlooked once the rider gets the feel of the bike. What do we mean? The YZ250F weighs too much and it needs a bigger airbox to keep from starving the engine. Additionally, the YZ250F is wider than the rest of the class. On the plus side, we couldn't find an MXA test rider who didn't fall in love with the suspension on the YZ250F. Considering the durability and good price point, there's no bike that deserves to win this category more than the YZ250F. And finally, let's dive a little bit deeper into MXA's 2021 250 Motocross Bike of the Year. Honestly, we never thought that Husqvarna would beat out the KTM, but after 8 years, Husky has finally done it thanks to a big gamble. For the new model year, as we just mentioned, the Husky went with a lower chassis compared to the KTM, and this modification was a game changer, even though the settings on the forks and the shock were identical to the KTM. The FC250 handled much better than any bike it went up against. It turned sharper, offered better agility, and more consistent lap times. We were shocked with the all-around improvements that the lower chassis made. However, the Husky engineers aren't out of the woods yet. We complained year after year that Husqvarna's restrictive airbox was holding the engine back. Without this airbox, it would run with the same snappy throttle response and quick rev of the KTM 250. The air issue is still a problem years after we first voiced our displeasure with the lack of sufficient airflow. Surprisingly, even the optional vented airbox cover offers less ventilation than the KTM vented airbox cover. We don't like that Husky's engineers or the head office purposely tamed the FC250 so that the KTM will have an advantage, but the joke is on KTM for 2021 because the overall handling of the FC250 makes up the difference and then some. It is true that we always say power is king in the 250 four-stroke class, but with the FC250 and KTM 250 power plants being identical, save for just some throttle response, the improvements in handling outweigh the small power disadvantage on the track. The 2021 Husqvarna FC250 is MXA's 250 Motocross Bike of the Year as it offers the best overall chassis. It has great brakes, handling, engine, hydraulic clutch, peak horsepower, and torque. So that's all for MXA's 2021 250 four-stroke shootout. Thank you guys for staying tuned and watching this video. As always, we take a lot of pride and effort into our shootouts. We put a lot of time into these things. Why? Because we love it. It's our job. We love breaking apart the details on each bike, riding them, comparing them back to back, drag racing them, doing lap time wars to see which one is the best. And we always try to do our best so that we can better educate you, our loyal MXA readers and viewers, so that you can be better educated when you're heading to the dealer and you'll know which bike to buy, which bike will be best for you and your style of riding. make sure to stay up to date with our website, motocrossactionmag.com. We got bike tests on there, product tests on there, we got our shootouts on there, and more, so check us out there. Also, click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel so you can stay up to date with our latest videos. And wait, before you go, if you have some time now, click the thumbnails for some of our most recent videos.